My name is Odelin at my brother's wedding. Someone pinned a name tag on my grandmother's dress. It read, "The old woman who'll foot the bill." By the time they bled her of almost $3.5 million, they had the nerve to call her selfish. When I dared to speak up, my father struck me, so hard that blood sprayed onto the polished floor of the ballroom. Then he tossed me out like garbage. Standing outside, bloodied and alone in the parking lot, it hit me. This wasn't just about money. They had stripped her and me of everything: dignity, loyalty, even love. But they made one fatal mistake. They believed I'd stay quiet. Has your own family ever made you feel invisible? Tell me in the comments and stay with me, because what happened next, they still can't forget it. The ballroom reeked of vanilla-scented candles and rubbery, overcooked chicken. My heels echoed on the marble floor as I walked in, pretending this was a celebration. It wasn't. Right near the entrance stood Muriel, my grandmother. She looked so small, so misplaced. Pinned to her dress was that name tag, "The old woman who'll pay for everything." For a moment, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but nobody laughed. Nobody cared. My mother sipped her wine as if nothing was wrong. When I reached out to grab the tag, my father's sharp voice sliced through the air. "Don't make a scene, Odelin." "What is this?" I whispered. Without even glancing up, my mother muttered, "You always ruin things that aren't about you." Muriel said nothing. She just shuffled away, her shoulders drooping under a weight far heavier than age. I sat through the speeches, clenching my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Then my father seized a microphone. "Let's give a big hand to Muriel. The reason this day even happened," he declared with a wide grin. "After all, what else is family for?" The crowd erupted in laughter. Something inside me broke. Did she even agree to this? I yelled, "Or did you rob her blind? $3.5 million gone." The room froze. My father's smile disappeared. "Odelin, sit down." "No, she's not your ATM." The slap came so fast. My cheek burned. Blood filled my mouth. Gasps echoed. Chairs scraped against the floor. But no one stood up. No one helped. My mother leaned in, her voice venomous. "She's not family anymore." Security yanked me out by the arms. My heels dragged across the marble floor. Outside, the cold night air sliced through me like blades. Behind me, the party roared on like nothing had happened. I pressed my hand against my bleeding lip and stared at the glowing ballroom windows. In that moment, something either shattered inside me or finally woke up. The parking lot stretched out, empty and dark, the wind biting at my satin dress. I walked until the lights of the ballroom faded behind me. No phone, no purse, just a torn lip and the echo of their laughter still ringing in my ears. I wandered past shuttered storefronts, deserted streets, and a lonely 7-Eleven flickering under its neon sign. Finally, I sank onto a curb, wrapping my arms around myself. For the first time in my life, I had nowhere to go. I touched the split in my lip. The sting hurt, but not nearly as much as the shame. Their voices echoed in my head. "You ruin everything. You're not family anymore." Headlights sliced through the dark. I froze, bracing for more pain, until the door opened and out stepped Muriel. She was silent, frail, clutching the silver shawl I'd given her last Christmas. Without a word, she draped it over my shoulders like armor, then opened the car door. Muriel's apartment smelled faintly of lavender and dust, a small, quiet space that somehow felt safe. She pointed to the couch. Minutes later, she returned with a damp cloth. Her hands trembled as she gently cleaned my lip, softer than anyone had in years. When she finished, she made tea. Still, she said nothing. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "They took everything." I stared at her. $3.5 million, she whispered. "Your grandfather's inheritance. The company shares. Every bit of savings gone." The words hit me like a freight train. "How?" "They said I was too old, brought papers, told me it was temporary." She lowered her eyes. I believed them. A cold fury crept up my spine. They didn't just humiliate her. They gutted her life. And I let it happen. Muriel's voice cracked. I thought they loved me. I pulled the shawl tighter around my shoulders. They don't get to win, I whispered. For the first time, she looked straight into my eyes. In hers, a flicker of something delicate. Hope. I woke up to silence. Muriel lay curled beneath a thin blanket, her breathing soft but uneven. I sat in the armchair, her silver shawl draped across my lap like a shield, staring at the ceiling's hairline cracks, as if they held the answers I needed. My body screamed for rest, but my mind wouldn't slow down. Out of habit, I reached for my phone. Dead battery. Then I remembered. Photos automatically back up. I grabbed Muriel's old tablet and logged into the cloud. The wedding album loaded in a blur of images. Smiling faces, champagne glasses, glittering chandeliers. But then one picture froze me. Seated in the corner, the estate attorney. The same man who'd worked with my father years before. Why was he there? I scrolled faster, my gut twisting. That night wasn't just about vows and cake. They'd signed something legal right under my nose. I needed answers. I texted the only friend who still answered my calls. Amy, I need legal advice. Urgent. We met at dawn in a greasy diner that smelled like burnt coffee and old regrets. Amy listened without interrupting. Then she said the words that hollowed me out. If Muriel can't prove she's mentally competent, they keep everything. She's fine, I whispered, desperate. Amy shook her head. Doesn't matter. Proof does. If she fails, the state steps in. They'll take her permanently. The air left my lungs a frozen rush. But then Amy leaned closer. Your father's scared. She dropped the bomb. We traced the bank records. He's been funneling her money into dummy corporations for years. OD, this isn't family drama. It's fraud. Hours later, back in Muriel's apartment, I watched her sitting quietly in the morning light. They're going to come for you, I said softly. They already have, she replied. That night, I packed her documents into a worn-out tote bag. My pulse thudded in my ears when I heard a low hum outside the window. Headlights spilled between the blinds. I froze. A black SUV sat idling across the street, engine running, windows blacked out, watching. The pounding started just after sunrise. Hard, relentless, shaking the doorframe. I jolted up from the couch, my heart slamming against my ribs. Behind me, Muriel stirred, her fragile voice barely a whisper. Odelin, Laissez-faire. Then I heard him. Open the door, Odelin. Dad. I peered through the peephole. There he stood, my mother beside him, and a man in a dark gray suit clutching a folder. An attorney. Dad's voice thundered. You're sheltering a person declared mentally incompetent. Open this door now. Mom chimed in, her voice slick with false sweetness and venom. She's been manipulating Muriel all along. She always has. An envelope slid across the floor, beneath the door. Notice of legal action. Intent to remove Muriel for psychiatric evaluation within 24 hours. Behind me, Muriel broke into soft sobs. I signed something, she whimpered. They said I was confused. A hard pound rattled the doorframe. This is your final warning. With trembling hands, I shot off a text to Amy. They're here. Her response came in seconds. Keep it locked. Filing an emergency injunction now. Silence followed. But I knew this wasn't over. That evening, Amy showed up with a single sentence that changed everything. Your father's been funneling Muriel's assets through dummy corporations. She met my eyes. If we prove it, he goes down. The key was evidence. We needed the original will. Muriel, her voice almost inaudible, told us where it was. Her storage unit. It was midnight. The streets shimmered under a thin layer of rain. Amy drove. My pulse thudded in sync with the windshield wipers as we pulled up. The unit's door hung slightly open. Inside, under a lone flickering bulb, stood Clarice, cool and composed, waiting. Her words sliced through the air. You should have stayed out of this. Her voice dropped to a hiss. Push this any further, and Muriel rots away in a state facility. You'll lose everything. I stepped toward her, holding her stare. You wouldn't be here if you weren't afraid. Her jaw tightened. Then, without another word, she shoved past me and melted into the night. At the back of the unit, Amy forced open a lockbox. Inside my grandfather's will, Muriel was named sole heir of everything. At the bottom, in his own unsteady handwriting, protect her, no interference. Amy's voice dropped, low and fierce. This ends tomorrow. The courthouse felt colder than that blizzard we'd endured weeks before. Muriel wrapped her silver shawl tightly around her shoulders, like battle armor. Amy stood beside us, her jaw set, clutching a folder thick with evidence. Across the courtroom, Dad and Clarice sat composed until Amy started to speak. She laid out piece by piece. Shell companies, guardianship fraud, and finally the original will, complete with Grandpa's handwritten plea. Protect her, no interference. The judge leaned forward, brow furrowed. Their lawyer stammered, and then Amy played the recording. Clarice's venomous threat from the storage unit. Push this, and Muriel rots and stayed home. The courtroom gasped. Clarice's face turned ghostly pale. Dad snapped, shouting, "She's delusional. Always has been." The judge's voice cracked like a whip. "Sit down." When the gavel struck, it was like thunder in my chest. Guardianship dissolved. Control restored to Muriel. And a financial investigation launched on the spot. Outside, under a sky bruised with dawn, Muriel squeezed my hand. "I thought I'd lost it all," she whispered. "Not while I'm still breathing. I promised." Weeks later, her apartment smelled of weak coffee, and something I hadn't felt there before. Peace. She rewrote her will, not for wealth, but for dignity. That night, I sat on her porch, the silver shawl across my lap, staring out at the quiet. I thought about everything they'd tried to steal, and how silence nearly let them. People often ask me if I regret standing up. I don't, because silence doesn't protect peace. It polishes chains. If it were you, would you fight, or would you protect the family's dirty little secret? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.